Damaging has this week been for the PM?
I think it's been damaging, but to be honest, Arlene, I think most members of the public are just sick to the back teeth of it. I think the whole story has become so tedious. You know, when you've got a cost of living crisis, when you've got a situation where there's a war in Europe, this is the centre of attention. It has become, I think, a Westminster bubble story.
Yeah.
Not that there wasn't merit in reporting the story in the beginning. You know, the reality is that there was hypocrisy on the part of the Prime Minister and the government, and that's one thing that voters hate. They hate being told to do one thing when ministers themselves are doing another. But I think now it's not at the top of people's priorities out there in Britain. I do think, however, strictly on a procedural point, that with this Privileges Committee investigation, if it is found that the Prime Minister did lie to Parliament, that would be a serious issue, and I'd have to say I think it would be very, very difficult for him to continue in those circumstances. So that's still to run, and obviously there's talk that there may even be more fixed penalty notices as a result of other get-togethers that had gone on as well. So I don't think the Prime Minister is in any sense out of the woods just because lots of members of the public are finding the whole thing a bit tedious, because, as I say, the Privileges Committee could really sound the death knell for him. But for ordinary people out there, the call was for him to resign. He didn't do so. He's clearly not going to do so at this point, so let's concentrate on things that are more important. But a final point I would make is, I think what the Westminster bubble is doing by focusing so much on this story is missing the broader point about lockdown and the merits of lockdown and the downsides of lockdown and whether or not it was ever right to sort of impose the kind of restrictions that we saw in this country. So when Sir Keir Starmer stood at the dispatch box this week and talks about the harrowing case of John from Lichfield, who couldn't hold his wife's hand in the final moments of her life and was obviously using that as a weapon to beat the Prime Minister. Actually, I think the bigger story there was those MPs who were expressing such shock at such a story. These were the same people who voted for those restrictions in the first place.